How's it going, Jets fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Moran. And today we want to take a look at an interesting rumor that the Jets look to acquire A.J. Brown during the draft. Instead, obviously, they went with Garrett Wilson. We'll kind of discuss that, what A.J. Brown would have brought to this Jets team and why maybe Garrett Wilson is ultimately the better option as a long-term solution, especially financially, for goodness sake. But we also want to discuss the offensive line. And PFF gave them a pretty impressive grade. I mean, I didn't expect them to be so high, especially with a lot of unproven players and faces, but I think that they have the potential to be a really solid unit. And I think that maybe it's properly graded. We'll give you guys some insight into that, what they're thinking, and where we would grade them among the 32 NFL teams. But Ryan, before we dive into these great topics, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Alex. I appreciate it. Some good topics here. Always the hypotheticals are, in hindsight, fun to discuss, especially with somebody like AJ Brown and the fun he would have brought. But I think what you said at the end there is best. Garrett Wilson's the perfect option for the Jets at this point in time, just from a financial standpoint. And as Joe Douglas has spoken on, having these young skill position players with a young quarterback like Zach Wilson, having that opportunity to grow together, I think is ultimately for the long term what is probably best. And you talked about the PFF grade, obviously, with the offensive line, and for me, it's like you look back at when Joe Douglas took over a little over 3 years ago now in 2019, and the Jets offensive line at close to nothing. I want to say Chuma Edoga is the only player left that was on the roster before Douglas took over. So it just goes to show you the commitment that he's made to the complete overhaul of the position group. And it was a bottom. It might have been the worst unit when Joe Douglas took over, and you knew with his offensive line background, that was why Jets fans were so excited. I mean, you knew this guy was going to give everything he had, and it took time. It was an incremental process that he gradually built up year by year, and we've spoken on it. I think this, as of now, on paper, is probably a top 15 to 20 unit. I think they still got to prove themselves. There is some unknown, but on paper, and even the interior depth with guys like Nate Herbig, Dan Feeney, proven veterans, or maybe not as much in Herbig's case, but he has gained experience the last 2 years to where I even think some of the reserves on this line we can feel pretty good about.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the offensive line, and I guess we'll discuss that first. We'll dive into the A.J. Brown stuff later, because I think the offensive line stuff is a lot more interesting. The Giants, for context, ranked 18th in this, right? The Giants' offensive line, I don't even know how they're ranked 18th in this. I mean, look, Andrew Thomas is great. Evan Neal, sure, great. We haven't seen him play it down yet, so we don't really know. Mark Lewinsky, they just signed him at right guard. Pretty solid for the Colts the last couple of years. Good run blocker. And then John Feliciano at center, and then you have a kind of a competition at left guard. Not established, no chemistry. This is a brand new built offensive line, and they're ranked 18th. So the Jets at 13th, I think they have a much better unit personally. I mean, they have the projected starting lineup with Mekhi Becton at left tackle personally, and I think you have agreed with me on this as well, that George Font should be the starting left tackle simply because he offers the most consistency and really probably durability at this point. And he has the experience with Zach Wilson, which I think is the most important variable at this point in time, is just making sure Zach Wilson is comfortable and that he trusts his left guard position. And I think he trusts George Font enough. I think he only gave up like 3 sacks last year, maybe less. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty impressed by George Font. And, I think that he should be locking down that left tackle spot. I think Mekhi Becton should be at the right tackle position. We talked about Laken Tomlinson yesterday. Absolute stud. He freaking moves people, or we talked about him 2 days ago, rather. Did a little film review, so go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But PFF basically said this: there's so much talent along this front five, but it's tough to bump the unit up into the next tier with so many unproven players. The success of this offensive line will hinge on the left tackle position, and as such, the right tackle position as well. After a knee injury ended Mekhi Becton's 2021 season, just 1 week into the campaign, George Font looked admirable in his stead. That led to Font having a career year at left tackle, recording a 75.1 pass blocking grade, and looking far better than he ever did on the right side. So being that that's the case, I think you keep him at left tackle. What are you thinking about this team, this offensive line? Do you think, 13th is a little bit too high, or do you think maybe it's properly graded?
I guess in terms of what you said, with the Giants being at 18, I guess 13 is probably somewhat fair for the Jets. There is a ton of unproven commodities, like you said, at this time. Who's playing at left tackle, who's playing at right tackle. I think we've obviously said we think that Fant will play at left tackle, and I think that's honestly what the Jets' plan is. Obviously, we still have to see here when training camp kicks off, but I'm expecting Fant at left and Becton at right. Just like you said, the known consistency with Fant is really a big thing, and giving Zach Wilson that sure thing as a blindside pass blocker, I think is all that you need to know with Fan. And from there, I mean, I think the next biggest question really is how does Elijah Vera Tucker make that move to right guard? Obviously, he had a good rookie year at left guard, and he's the last 3 years now played different positions. So you're just hoping that really isn't too much on his plate. And we've heard some people speak on it. It's really just the muscle memory moving from left to right. I mean, he's still playing guard, which is a good thing. He knows the system and the terminology. So there is just a level of comfortability probably from his standpoint. You just want him to get comfortable there, get reps. And I think having two good guards like that around Connor McGovern, you saw the difference last year when the Jets went out and got Laurent Duvernay-Tardif and just how much better McGovern was. So I think having two stable guards like that should only help a guy like McGovern, who I guess you just have to say based on the other four guys, he's probably the worst of the group. And that's not even a bad thing as far as I'm concerned. McGovern is a guy I like and have confidence in. So I think that the potential is definitely there. Like we said, there's unproven, things that they still got to go out and do collectively as a unit. There's still some unanswered questions, but I think by the end of the season, the potential is there to be a top 15 unit.
Totally. I mean, Elijah Vera Tucker is one of my favorite players in this offensive line. Honestly, I think he's going to be your best offensive lineman by his third year. I think he's a Pro Bowl caliber player, or at least he's going to be. He had a pretty solid rookie season. He only gave up 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 34 hurries, and 42 total pressures. Had 5 penalties, but over 1,000 snaps as a rookie, and he had some elite games against Atlanta in Week 5. He was an absolute monster in pass pro and in run blocking against Tampa Bay, who have a really good pass rush in Week 17. He had a great game. He had pretty good games against Cincinnati, against New England, against Tennessee, all big time teams. His worst games came against Indianapolis and Buffalo. Those were the worst of the bunch. Then New England didn't have a great pass block game, but he showed up against some pretty damn good teams, which I think is something to consider and note, which, translates. That's something that we can look forward to, moving forward into 2022. I think Elijah Vera Tucker moving to right guard, he has all the experience, right? When he was in college, he played almost every position on the line, aside from center. So I think that versatility offers a ton to the Jets. If for whatever reason they lost Font or Becton or whoever it might be, they could say, you know what, we trust him to go in there and fill that gap if we want. I think they have a Doga. They have some other guys. We talked about Riley Reef, but I do believe that Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be a phenomenal guard for this team moving forward into the future. But I think 13th is a pretty reasonable grade for the Jets. I think it's maybe a little optimistic, but I also think they're capable of that and better. So, that's kind of my take on it, but let's discuss Garrett Wilson really quickly and AJ Brown. So AJ Brown, interesting, right? AJ Brown was linked to the Jets. They had, reportedly been interested in trading for him during the NFL draft. He ended up going to the Philadelphia Eagles, where he signed a 4-year, $100 million deal instantaneously. So last year, 869 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had 1,075 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2020 as a Pro Bowler. Some pretty good seasons, but, he has had his fair share of injury issues. Some inconsistencies from time to time, but with the Eagles, they're hoping to maximize his value as a monster receiver at 6'1" and 226 pounds. But here's the thing: Garrett Wilson is on a rookie deal. He's not making the monster amount of money that AJ Brown is going to earn. The 4 years, $100 million. He has a $34.3 million dead cap hit in 2023. He has a $40 million cap hit this year, $25.8 million cap hit in 2024, and then the Eagles can get out of it. In 2025, they have an out, which would be $15.4 million in dead money. So their cap hit is absurd. The dead money is absurd. The cap hit's only 5.6 mil this year, 8.5 in 2023, and 27.6 in 2024. And there's no way out of that contract, right? That 2024 money, when that comes due, that is an insane amount of cap hit. And then they'll probably release him after that, and they'll save, the 22 mil and then the 37 mil in 2026 against the cap. So, in terms of financial commitment, the Eagles went all in on AJ Brown. They went all in on AJ Brown. And I don't think that was the right move for the Jets. I think that they made a good decision drafting Garrett Wilson instead of trading for AJ Brown. Garrett Wilson has the capabilities to be an elite receiver. And I think that, he has pretty healthy history. He's consistent. I think you don't need another possession receiver like Brown to pair with Corey Davis. They both played on the same team in Tennessee. So, from my perspective, of course, Brown is way more established. He has done it at the NFL level, and he's been an elite receiver for a couple of years. But I do think Garrett Wilson has the potential to be that, and you save the $100 million in the process. So I think that was probably the right decision. What are your thoughts on that move?
100%. I think either way, I would have been happy. I mean, AJ Brown has been one of my favorite players, even in the draft process. Like I loved him and Debo, and I was shocked they both fell the second round that year. AJ is a complete player, I think, in terms of the size, the route running, the speed, yards after the catch ability, can play in the slot, can play against press coverage as an next receiver. And when he's impactful in the red zone, there's a lot that he can offer you. But I think you said it best there. The financial advantage, obviously, with a rookie contract and Wilson growing with a young quarterback, like I mentioned earlier, with Zach and all these other young skill players. Obviously, AJ is still only, I want to say 24, 25, but all these guys being draft picks in the last 2-3 years, when you look at Zach, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Michael Carter, I think that's really an exciting thought. Obviously with AJ as well, I guess the rumors made sense because of his relationship with Elijah Moore and maybe what the Jets were looking to try and do there. You knew that they were in on Tyreek Hill and down to the wire with that. And I would even argue the value for AJ was probably better than Tyreek when you look at it. You consider age, you consider just he's a bit more complete than Tyreek, just as a route runner, winning over the middle, things like that. So ultimately, though, I'm really happy with Garrett Wilson. I think that was the correct move. Just having that youth, he offers you some of that contested catch ability for a smaller guy, which is unique. I think he fits the scheme as a route runner, with the jet sweep game, the screen game, and he's got that 4.3 speed, which is a really nice element to add to the offense. So I think overall it was a win-win situation. And, I'm excited to really see Garrett here as a rookie grow with the rest of this young offense.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like either way, it would have been a good decision for the Jets, but I think saving the money, $100 million, probably will end up being a bonus for them, especially because now they have so many guys on rookie contracts they can spend at positions that really need it. Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and Garrett Wilson is a pretty damn good trio of receivers. I don't think you need AJ Brown in that mix for the most part, but now they have that additional cash flow to say next year when they're looking to make a playoff run, they can say, who do we need right now? Do we need a pass rusher? Do we need a top corner? Do we need a run, whoever it could be, an offensive lineman? Do we need a center? Do we need a tackle? Because George Font's in the final year of his deal. Ton of different things the Jets can do, and that money really opens it up for the future. So I think at the end of the day, it was the right decision that they made. But guys, make sure to like and subscribe below on the YouTube channel as always, and subscribe to Apple and Spotify, my friends. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you guys